I never thought that at 65 I would wake up feeling empty. I should be happy. Another birthday. Another year of life. But the house is quiet. Only the old clock in the living room ticks away the time with a persistence that I sometimes lack. My little house on Hamilton Street is one of those typical two-story houses in Worcester with a small porch and a flower bed. Nothing special, but Harold and I loved it. It's been 10 years since he passed away, and I still sometimes turn around to tell him something and find only emptiness. Today, I am 65, a number that once seemed unimaginably far away. I get out of bed, throw on my old robe, and go to make coffee, a morning ritual that has remained unchanged for 40 years. Coffee first, then everything else. On the kitchen table is a card from my sister in Portland. Dorothy never forgets my birthday. Dear Evelyn, happy birthday, sis. Remember, 65 is the new 45. Come visit us. We always love to see you. I smile. Dorothy was always an optimist. I wish I had her energy. Lately, I've been thinking more and more about her suggestion that I move closer to her. What's keeping me in Worcester? The shop, the children, the grandchildren. I inherited the yarn and fantasy shop from my mother. At first, it was just a small shop selling yarn and thread, but Harold and I gradually turned it into a real craft store. I spent 37 years behind the counter, helping people choose materials for their creative projects. How many sweaters were knitted from yarn I sold? How many quilts were sewn? How many embroideries were created? Sometimes I feel like there's something in every house in Worcester that I've had a hand in. Throwing on my jacket, May mornings in Worcester can be deceptively cool. I head out to open the shop. It's only 2 blocks from my house, on a quiet street with a few small family businesses. The Johnson's Butcher Shop, the Peters Antique Store, my yarn and fantasy, and Sandra Miller's flower shop. We've all known each other for a long time, supporting each other through tough times and celebrating each other's successes. The bell above the door jingles as I walk in. The smell of yarn, fabric, and wooden shelves envelops me in a familiar warmth. On the counter is a small stack of greeting cards from regular customers. It's nice to be remembered. I turn on the lights, open the cash register, and start arranging the new yarn arrivals on the display. I sort the bright balls of alpaca and merino wool by color, from deep purples to soft lemons. The work is familiar, almost meditative. At moments like this, I feel particularly keenly that it could all be over soon. In recent months, the thought of selling the business has been coming up more and more often. I'm tired. Tired of getting up at 6 in the morning. Tired of worrying about deliveries and taxes. Tired of counting pennies to make ends meet. The shop never made a lot of money, but Harold and I never complained. Now that I'm on my own, sometimes it seems like it's not worth the effort. The bell rings and my first customer of the day enters. Martha Finch, my neighbor and longtime friend. "Happy birthday, Evelyn!" she exclaims, handing me a small box tied with a satin ribbon. "I know you don't like big celebrations, but I couldn't leave you without a present." "Thank you, Martha," I hug my friend. "You always remember." 65 is no joke, Martha says, sitting down on a chair near the counter. "We need to celebrate properly. How about going to the Old Oak tonight? They play jazz on Thursdays." I smile as I open the box. Inside is an elegant brooch in the shape of a ball of yarn with 2 knitting needles. "It's beautiful, Martha. Thank you." I thought, what could I give the owner of a yarn shop? Only something that symbolizes her business. We chat about the weather, the news in Worcester, and the latest town gossip. Martha is an inexhaustible source of information. If anything happens in our neighborhood, she's the first to know. "How's your Priscilla? Is she coming to visit?" Martha asks, sorting through new embroidery kits. I sigh. My only daughter Priscilla lives just 15 minutes away in the prestigious Salisbury Street neighborhood. We don't see each other often, usually only on holidays or when she needs something. "She promised to stop by," I reply. "But she has some kind of charity lunch today, so she probably won't be home for long." Martha snorts. "All these charity lunches, and no time for her own mother?" I shrug. I don't want to look like a hurt old woman complaining about her children's neglect, but deep down, I know Martha is right. "Did you hear what she gave her mother-in-law for her birthday last month?" Martha lowers her voice, even though we're the only 2 people in the store. "No," I reply, trying to sound casual. "Something special?" "An emerald ring." Martha's eyes widen. And not just any ring, but an antique one from some auction house. Lucy Parker saw it on Marjorie Bradford's finger at the club. She says it's worth at least $20,000. I gasp, unable to hide my surprise. $20,000 for a ring for her mother-in-law? My annual income from the store barely reaches that amount. And that's not all, Martha continues. She paid for her to go on a Mediterranean cruise. 2 weeks, can you imagine? I nod, not knowing what to say. Priscilla has never hidden her adoration for her mother-in-law. Marjorie Bradford is a former model, socialite, and member of all the prestigious clubs in Worcester. When Priscilla married Richard Bradford, she gained a second mother, the one she had always dreamed of. Refined, elegant, with impeccable manners and connections in high society. I don't envy her, I really don't, but sometimes it hurts. What does Priscilla usually give you? Martha asks. I remember last year's gift, a $50 gift certificate to a spa that I never used. The year before that, it was a kitchen towel with Best Mom written on it. All sorts of things, I reply evasively. Priscilla knows I'm not a demanding person. Martha looks at me sympathetically. But fortunately, the bell above the door rings again, saving me from having to continue the conversation. Mrs. Jenkins enters, who has been knitting sweaters for all of her numerous grandchildren for 40 years. The day goes on as usual. Customers come and go. I help choose yarn for a baby blanket, explain the difference between various types of embroidery canvas, and demonstrate new quilting kits. It's a normal day. Only inside me, a strange uneasiness is growing, a mixture of anticipation and anxiety. Towards evening, just as I am about to close the shop, the bell rings and Priscilla enters. My daughter looks impeccable, as always. A cream-colored suit from a famous designer, high-heeled shoes, her hair styled perfectly. She looks like me only in her eyes. The same gray-green as my mother's and mine. Happy birthday, Mom, she says, kissing me lightly on the cheek. She smells of expensive perfume. Sorry I'm so late. It's been a crazy day. It's okay, dear, I reply. I'm just glad you stopped by. Priscilla looks around the shop with a barely perceptible grimace, as if the dusty shelves of yarn are something that offend her aesthetic sensibilities. I have something for you, she says, handing me a small bag from an expensive boutique. I hope you like it. I carefully unwrap the thin tissue paper. Inside is a plastic flower, a rose made of some kind of synthetic material, dyed an unnaturally bright pink, on a plastic stem with plastic leaves. That's beautiful, I say, trying to hide my disappointment. It's a new thing from Carlson, Priscilla explains enthusiastically. They make flowers that never wilt. Practical, isn't it? No need to change the water or take care of them. Just put them there and forget about them. I nod, unable to express my gratitude. A plastic flower, from a daughter who gave her mother-in-law a $20,000 ring and a cruise. Thank you, dear, very original. Priscilla looks at her watch. I have to run. Richard has a business dinner and I need to get changed. You understand. Of course, I reply. Go on, thanks for stopping by. She kisses me on the cheek again. Happy birthday, Mom. I'll call you over the weekend. And she leaves, leaving behind a trail of expensive perfume and a feeling of unfinished business. I look at the plastic flower in my hands. Doesn't she understand? Or does she just not care? I close the shop, turn off the lights, and slowly walk home, clutching the ridiculous gift in my hand. Evening Worcester is quiet and peaceful. People are returning from work, lights are coming on in the windows, children are playing somewhere. Ordinary life in an ordinary city. At home, I put the plastic flower on the dresser in the living room and stare at it for a long time. No, I'm not jealous that Priscilla gives Marjorie expensive gifts. It's not about the money. It's about the attitude. It's about how carelessly she treats me, as if I'm an inconvenient obligation to be remembered on holidays. I don't want to become a grumpy old woman who complains about her ungrateful children. But today, looking at this ridiculous plastic flower, I feel useless, abandoned, as if I were some detail from Priscilla's past that she would rather forget. The phone rings. It's Dorothy, my sister. Happy birthday, sis. Her voice is full of warmth and love. How are you? Did you get my card? Yes, thank you, I reply, feeling tears welling up in my throat. Everything's fine. Eve, I've known you for 65 years. Don't try to fool me. What's going on? And I tell her about the plastic flower, the $20,000 ring, the cruise, how Priscilla spent exactly 5 minutes in the store. Dorothy listens without interrupting. You know, she says finally, maybe this is a sign. Maybe it's time to think about yourself. You've lived for others for so many years, for Harold, for Priscilla, for your customers. Maybe it's time to live for yourself? I look at the photos on the wall. Harold and me on our wedding day, little Priscilla on a swing, my parents at the store on opening day. A whole life in frames. I'm thinking about selling the store, I say quietly, saying the words out loud for the first time. And maybe move closer to you. Really? Dorothy's voice is full of joy. Evie, that would be wonderful. There's so much to do here, and there's plenty of space, and the air is clean, and we could see each other every day. We talk for another hour. Dorothy tells me about her garden club, the new bakery that opened near her house, and how she and her husband recently took a trip to the coast. I listen and feel something inside me thaw. Maybe it really is time for a change? After our conversation, I sit in my chair looking at the plastic flower. Strangely, it doesn't seem so offensive to me now. More symbolic. A fake flower that never wilts, but never grows either. Just standing there, gathering dust. I don't want to be like that. I don't want to freeze like that flower. Maybe at 65, it's not too late to start something new? Before going to bed, I take an old box of documents out of the closet. There, among insurance policies and old receipts, is a business card from a real estate agent who came to the store a month ago. Thinking of selling your business? Call us, reads the inscription on the back. I put the card on my bedside table. Tomorrow. Tomorrow I'll call him and find out how much a craft store in the small town of Worcester, Massachusetts might be worth. And today is my birthday. I take a small piece of cake I bought for myself out of the refrigerator and a bottle of wine Martha gave me. 65 years old. An age when it's no longer embarrassing to admit that you're tired, that you want peace, that maybe you deserve a little happiness. I look at the plastic flower and raise my glass. To new beginnings. Sunday in Worcester was surprisingly sunny. The May morning greeted me with birds singing outside the window and golden rays of sunlight streaming through the curtains. Usually, weather like this lifts my spirits, but today I felt only anxiety. I was going to have lunch with Priscilla's family. These monthly Sunday dinners had long since become a kind of ritual. A ritual I couldn't break without causing reproach and hurt feelings. Priscilla considered it her duty to bring the family together like normal people, even though these gatherings always left me with a bitter aftertaste. I spent a long time choosing what to wear. My wardrobe wasn't exactly designer, but I wanted to look presentable. I settled on a blue dress with a white collar, simple but neat. I pulled my once thick chestnut hair, now gray and thinning, into a modest bun. Looking in the mirror, I saw a woman who had once been beautiful, but now simply existed. I took the bus to my daughter's house on Salisbury Street. I could have called a taxi, but it seemed wasteful. The bus went through the whole city, and I looked out the window at familiar streets, shops, and parks. Worcester was changing before my eyes. Old buildings were giving way to modern complexes. Small family shops were being replaced by chain stores. I felt like I was part of a bygone era. Priscilla and Richard's house, a 3-story colonial-style mansion with a manicured lawn and perfectly trimmed bushes, was impressive even to the residents of this prestigious neighborhood. White columns, French windows, a circular driveway. Every time I approached the house, I felt a strange mixture of pride and awkwardness. My daughter had achieved what I had never dreamed of for myself. Priscilla opened the door herself. Today she was wearing a light beige suit that accentuated her tanned skin, the result of a recent trip to the Bahamas. "Mom, are you on the bus again?" Her first words sounded like a reproach. "I told you I could send a car for you." "I like riding the bus," I replied, handing her a small box of homemade cookies. I look out the window and think, besides, it's good for me to walk to the bus stop and back. Priscilla took the box as if I had brought her a lump of dirt instead of cookies. "Thanks, but we already have dessert. French cake from the new bakery. Marjorie highly recommended it." I swallowed the lump in my throat and walked into the spacious hall. I could already hear voices from the living room, Marjorie Bradford's ringing laughter, Richard's bass-voiced replies, and the noise of children's voices. The living room in Priscilla's house looked like a page out of an interior design magazine. Bright, spacious, with antique furniture and modern accents. On the walls were paintings by artists unknown to me in expensive frames, and on the shelves were vases and figurines brought back from travels. "Evelyn, dear!" Marjorie rose to greet me. Tall, slender, with perfectly styled silver hair and flawless makeup, she looked younger than her 67 years. On her finger sparkled the very emerald ring Martha had told me about. "How wonderful to see you!" She hugged me with theatrical warmth. Marjorie smelled of expensive perfume and privilege. This woman had never worked behind a counter, never worried about bills, never darned socks. Her hands, with their long manicured nails, had never known laundry or cooking. After her banker husband died, she lived off the interest from his estate and did charity work not out of a need to help others, but out of boredom. "Likewise, Marjorie," I lied with a polite smile. Richard, my brother-in-law, a tall man with a budding paunch and receding hairline, nodded to me from his armchair without getting up. "Hi, Evelyn, how's the shop? Keeping afloat?" There was always a condescending note in his voice when he talked about my business. Richard was a financial advisor for a large company and considered small family businesses a relic of the past. "Fine," I replied curtly, not wanting to pursue the subject. My grandchildren, 16-year-old Jason and 14-year-old Amanda, barely looked up from their phones to say hello. Only 8-year-old Lucy ran over to hug me. "Grandma Evelyn," she said, wrapping her arms tightly around me. "I missed you." Lucy was special. Unlike her older siblings, who were spoiled and indifferent, she retained her childlike spontaneity and sincerity. With her reddish hair and freckles, she reminded me of myself as a child. "I missed you too, sweetheart," I hugged her back, feeling my heart warm. "Lucy, don't touch Grandma's dress," Priscilla scolded her. "Everyone come to the table, lunch is ready." The dining room in Priscilla's house looked like the set of a movie about high society. A long polished table, crystal glasses, silver cutlery, porcelain plates with gold rims. Everything was perfect. Everything was like normal people. I took my usual place at the far end of the table between Jason and Amanda. Marjorie, the guest of honor, sat opposite me. Richard sat at the head of the table, with Priscilla next to him. Lucy was seated between Marjorie and her mother. The housekeeper, a silent woman from Guatemala, began to serve the appetizers, salad with avocado and shrimp. I knew that the main course and dessert would follow, and I mentally prepared myself for a 2-hour ordeal. "So, Marjorie, tell us about the cruise." Priscilla leaned forward with such an enthusiastic look, as if her mother-in-law was about to share the secret of eternal youth. "Which island did you like best?" Marjorie took a sip of wine and smiled. "Oh, Santorini, definitely. Those white houses on the cliffs, the blue sea. It's a magical place. I'm even thinking of buying a small villa there for summer vacations." Priscilla gasped with delight, as if she had heard the most exciting news in the world. "A villa in Santorini? Marjorie, that's a dream!" "Well, at my age, you have to treat yourself," Marjorie winked playfully. "Besides, it's a good investment. Real estate on the Greek islands is only going up in value." The conversation flowed in its usual direction. Real estate, investments, travel, the latest social news in Worcester. I ate my salad in silence, glancing at my grandchildren from time to time. Even sitting at the table, Jason managed to text someone on his phone, hidden under the tablecloth. Amanda chewed mechanically, staring into space with the look of someone deeply suffering from forced conversation with relatives. Only Lucy occasionally glanced at me curiously and smiled. The housekeeper cleared away the salad plates and brought the main course, some kind of complicated meat dish with sauce and a side of exotic vegetables. I didn't know much about haute cuisine, so I just ate what was put on my plate. "Marjorie, is this dish your recipe?" Priscilla asked. "It's delicious." "Yes, dear. I brought it back from Provence. The secret is in the special herbs that have to be added in a specific order." I looked at my daughter, trying to see the little girl I had once taught to tie her shoelaces and bake cookies. What had happened to her? When had she turned into this cold woman for whom status and outward appearances had become more important than sincere relationships? Maybe I had missed something in her upbringing? Or was it the influence of Richard and his family? "Mom, you're not listening!" Priscilla's voice snapped me out of my thoughts. "Marjorie is asking how your shop is doing." Oh, sorry, I turned to Marjorie. The shop is fine, we're busy. Evelyn runs a craft store, Priscilla explained in a tone that suggested she was talking about something slightly embarrassing. She's been doing it for years. How interesting, Marjorie said, feigning polite interest. Is business good? It varies. I put down my fork. Actually, I'm thinking about selling the shop. There was a silence. Even Jason looked up from his phone. Sell it? Priscilla frowned. Are you serious? Absolutely. I shrugged, trying to sound casual. I'm 65, Priscilla. I'm tired of getting up at 6 in the morning and worrying about deliveries and taxes. Maybe it's time to live for myself. What are you going to do? My daughter's voice sounded incredulous, as if she couldn't imagine me without the shop. I'm thinking of moving to Portland to be with Dorothy, I replied. It's beautiful there, the air is clean, and Dorothy would love to have some company. We could travel together, garden. Portland? Priscilla looked at me as if I had announced my intention to move to Mars. But that's on the other side of the country. 3,000 miles to be exact, I nodded. But now there are planes and trains. You can always come visit. Priscilla exchanged a quick glance with Richard. Something flashed in their eyes, worry, annoyance, but it disappeared immediately. Mom, don't be silly, Priscilla smiled tensely. Where would you go at your age? This is your home, your friends, your shop, and us, of course. At my age, people are still quite capable of changing their lives, I objected. Besides, I haven't seen my sister in a long time. After our father died, we kind of drifted apart. If the store is so hard for you, hire a manager, Richard suggested. Why sell it right away? It's a family business, a tradition. A manager would cost more than the shop's profits, I replied. And anyway, what traditions, Richard? None of you have ever been interested in the shop. Jason and Amanda don't even know what I sell there. The teenagers shrugged in unison, not denying it. Grandma sells yarn and all kinds of things for knitting and sewing, Lucy said unexpectedly. And beads and thread and needles and fabric. Right, Grandma? I smiled at my granddaughter. That's right, sweetie. And embroidery kits, knitting needles, crochet hooks, scrapbooking paper. Can I come to your shop sometime? Lucy's eyes lit up. I want to learn how to knit. Miss Parker showed us how she knits scarves at school. It's so beautiful. Of course, dear, I felt my heart warm. Come by any day after school. I'll teach you how to knit. Lucy, you have piano and ballet lessons, Priscilla interrupted. And Spanish. When are you going to go to the store? Besides, Grandma is busy. She has customers. I always have time for my granddaughter, I replied gently. Grandma, if you go away, who will teach me to knit? Lucy's voice sounded genuinely upset. I didn't have time to answer. Priscilla got up from the table. I think it's time to serve dessert. Richard, will you help me in the kitchen? They left, leaving Marjorie, the children, and me behind. Jason immediately returned to his phone, while Amanda stared into space with a pained expression. Marjorie turned to me. Evelyn, I understand your desire for change, but Priscilla is right. At our age, it's better to stay close to family. What if something happens? Who will take care of you in Portland? Dorothy, I replied. My sister, who I lived with for the first 20 years of my life, and she has 3 children and 7 grandchildren there. So I have plenty of family. Marjorie shrugged gracefully. Well, you know best, of course. It's just that Priscilla will miss you. She's so attached to you. I could barely suppress a bitter laugh. Priscilla, attached to me? The woman who calls once a week, visits once a month, and gave me a plastic flower for my birthday? I'm sure she'll be fine, I said dryly. Priscilla and Richard returned with a tray bearing a multi-layered cake decorated with fresh berries. Here it is, the cake from the French baker! Priscilla beamed as if she had baked this masterpiece herself. Marjorie, you were right, it looks divine! The ritual of cutting and distributing the cake began, accompanied by enthusiastic comments about the texture, the combination of flavors, and the talents of the French baker. I ate my piece in silence, thinking about the strangeness of the situation. Here we were, sitting at the same table, people bound by family ties, yet so foreign to each other. Was this really a family? Grandma, Lucy leaned toward me across the table, lowering her voice. Are you really leaving? There were tears in her eyes. This little girl, whom I saw no more than once a month, had somehow managed to become more attached to me than her mother had in all those years. I haven't made up my mind yet, sweetheart, I replied. But if I do leave, we'll talk on the phone, And you can come visit me during the holidays. Promise? Lucy held out her pinky finger across the table. I hooked my pinky finger with hers in an ancient children's ritual of promise. I promise. Lucy, don't reach across the table. It's rude, Priscilla scolded her. And eat your cake. Don't talk. The girl obediently returned to her plate, but continued to glance at me anxiously. Lunch ended with coffee in the living room. Richard and Jason quickly disappeared, the former to his study, the latter to his room. Amanda left to do her homework. Only Priscilla, Marjorie, Lucy, and I remained, with Lucy settling down on the floor with her sketchbook. So, Marjorie, you were talking about the villa in Santorini. Priscilla returned to the interrupted conversation. You'll have to file paperwork in Greece, right? I bet it's a whole mess with their bureaucracy. I listened to their conversation with half an ear, watching Lucy. She was drawing something intently, looking up from time to time and glancing at me. I smiled at her, and she smiled timidly back. Mom, Priscilla suddenly turned to me. I wanted to ask you something. That store of yours. If you really decide to sell it, you'll talk to us first, right? It's a family business after all. Of course, I nodded, although I didn't really see any reason for such consultations. Although I don't know what there is to discuss. You've never been interested in the store. That's not true, Priscilla objected. I just have my own life, my own concerns. But the shop is part of our family history. It belonged to my grandmother. And you suddenly remembered that? I couldn't hide my irony. Evelyn, dear, Marjorie interjected with a gentle smile. Priscilla is just worried about you. You can't make decisions like this on the spur of the moment. Selling the business, moving across the country, these are big changes. I looked at this woman who was only 2 years older than me, but looked like she had stepped out of a magazine for elderly socialites. Who was she to give me advice about my life? I've been thinking about this for over a year, Marjorie, I replied calmly. So it's not a rash decision. Grandma, look, I drew you. Lucy ran up to me, holding out her sketchbook. The drawing was of a woman with gray hair standing among colorful balls of yarn. It's you in your shop. I hugged my granddaughter. That's very beautiful, sweetie. Can I take this picture home with me? Of course, I drew it for you. Priscilla looked at her watch. It's almost 4. Mom, do you want to ride home? I have a meeting at 5, but I can... No, thank you, I said, getting up. I'd rather take the bus. I like looking out the window. We said goodbye. Marjorie hugged me with the same theatrical warmth she had shown when we met. Priscilla kissed me on the cheek, clearly eager to get rid of me and get on with her business. Only Lucy hugged me tightly and whispered, Please don't go, Grandma. On the bus, looking at the streets of Worcester passing by the window, I thought about how strange life is. My own daughter treats me like an inconvenient obligation, but my 8-year-old granddaughter, whom I see once a month, sincerely doesn't want to part with me. Is it worth maintaining the appearance of a family relationship for the sake of this little girl? Or is it better to leave and start a new life without pretense and forced smiles? I held Lucy's drawing carefully in my hands. Perhaps it was the only thing I would take with me from my old life if I did decide to move. It held memories of a time when my family was real. Tuesday morning greeted me with unexpected rain. Drops drummed on the roof and windows, reminding me that spring in Worcester is a changeable time. I love mornings like this, when the city seems to be covered in a blanket, the noise of the street subsides, and you can enjoy a special silence. The Yarn and Fantasy store opens at 9 on Tuesdays. I arrived an hour early as usual to arrange the new arrivals, dust the display cases, and prepare for the day. It was a ritual that had remained unchanged for many years. The bell above the door rang as I entered. The quiet, dark room greeted me with familiar smells, wool, cotton, and the lavender air freshener I spray every morning. I flipped the switch and turned on the lights, and the shop came to life. Colorful balls of yarn glowed on the shelves, knitting needles and crochet hooks sparkled behind the glass display case, and scraps of fabric danced with color. I put the kettle on in the back room, took the real estate agent's business card out of my bag, and placed it on the counter in front of me. I had invited him to come at 10 o'clock today, when there are usually few visitors. I had to make up my mind. After Sunday lunch at Priscilla's doubts only grew stronger. What was keeping me in this town? A shop that no one in my family ever visits? A daughter who only talks to me out of a sense of duty? Grandchildren who aren't interested in me? Only little Lucy would miss me, but we could talk on the phone and see each other during the holidays. As I laid out the new embroidery kits in the shop window, I remembered how it all began. My mother opened the yarn and thread shop back in 1952. At the time, it was a tiny shop that mainly sold wool yarn for knitting. It was the post-war period, and people often knitted their own clothes to save money. When my mother decided to retire, she handed the shop over to me. Harold and I had just gotten married. He worked as an engineer at a small factory, and I was a primary school teacher. My mother's shop was unprofitable, knitting was going out of fashion, and cheap clothes flooded the market. I wanted to give up, but Harold was excited about turning it into something more. Imagine, Evie, he said, scribbling some calculations on a piece of paper. Not just yarn, but everything for handicrafts. Embroidery, quilting, beadwork, sewing. We'll hold workshops and exhibitions. People will always want to create something with their own hands. Harold was like that, an enthusiast, a dreamer. I was more skeptical, but his energy was contagious. We invested all our savings, took out a small loan, and completely remodeled the store. New shelves, display cases, a sign that read Yarn and Fantasy. Harold came up with the name himself. The first 2 years were a nightmare. I worked at the school during the day and at the shop in the evenings. After his work, Harold delivered orders, negotiated with suppliers, and did repairs. We were barely making ends meet. And then I got pregnant with Priscilla. I decided to quit school and devote myself entirely to the shop. Harold was against it. A teacher's salary was a stable income, and the shop was still teetering on the brink of bankruptcy. But I insisted. We're going to have a child, I said, and I want to work where I can be with him. I spent the first few months with my newborn Priscilla right there in the shop. We set up a corner with a crib in the back room. The customers were touched to see me with my baby in my arms behind the counter. Gradually, a circle of regular customers formed, and I started giving knitting and embroidery workshops on weekends. The store began to bring in a steady, albeit small, income. Harold and I dreamed of having a second child, but it didn't work out due to complications after Priscilla's birth. So we put all our energy, time, and love into our daughter and the shop, our 2 babies. Priscilla grew up to be a smart, beautiful girl. As a teenager, she began to be ashamed of our modest business. Her friends were the children of doctors, lawyers, and professors. "Why do you need this shop?" she would ask. "Dad could be a chief engineer somewhere in Boston, and you, Mom, could go back to teaching." But neither Harold nor I wanted any changes. The shop had become a part of us, our shared endeavor. We loved our customers, who over time became our friends. We loved the quiet evenings when we did inventory together and discussed new ideas for workshops. Harold even learned to crochet and made funny toys that we sold at a charity Christmas fair. Priscilla left to go to college, then met Richard, got married, and had children. Her life took a completely different direction. She rarely came to the store, even though Harold and I paid for her education with the income from this unserious business, as she called it. And then Harold got sick. Lung cancer developed rapidly, and in 6 months he went from being a strong man to a shadow of his former self. I spent all my time between the hospital and the store, which I couldn't close. We needed money for treatment. Priscilla visited her father on weekends, always in a hurry. "I have children, Mom, you understand?" When Harold died, I was left alone with the store. The first year was the hardest. I worked on autopilot, barely finding the strength to get up in the morning. The only thing that kept me going was the customers, many of whom had become like family over the years. They brought homemade food, helped with inventory, or just came by to talk. And now, 10 years after my husband's death, I sit and wait for someone who will appreciate our baby and buy it. The business that Harold and I built over 37 years, which was part of us, our love story, and our life's work. The bell rang. My first customer of the day, Mrs. Jenkins, walked in. An 80-year-old woman who knits sweaters for all her many grandchildren and great-grandchildren. "Good morning, Evelyn," she smiled, taking off her raincoat. As you can see, even the rain didn't stop me from coming to get some new yarn. My youngest is almost a year old, and I want to knit him a special sweater. I smiled back, putting my gloomy thoughts aside for a moment. "I just got a new shipment of merino wool. It's incredibly soft, just right for a child's skin." We got into a discussion about shades of blue and patterns for a child's sweater. Mrs. Jenkins finally chose the yarn and said goodbye, promising to show me the result when she finished. No sooner had the door closed behind her than the doorbell rang again. A man in his 50s entered, wearing a gray suit and carrying a leather briefcase. Daniel Grierson, the real estate agent whose business card I had found among the papers. Mrs. Harcourt? He extended his hand. It's a pleasure to meet you in person. You have a lovely shop. His handshake was firm, and his gaze was already professionally assessing the premises, the size, condition, and commercial equipment. Thank you, Mr. Grierson. I led him into the back room where we could talk privately. Have a seat. Tea? Coffee? Coffee would be nice, he said, sitting down at a small table and taking some papers out of his briefcase. So, you've decided to sell the business after all? I placed a cup of coffee in front of him and sat down opposite him. I'm still thinking about it. I'd like to know how much it might be worth and what the prospects are for selling it. I understand, he nodded. A family business, many years. It's always a difficult decision. We talked for almost an hour. Mr. Grierson asked about the store's income, expenses, number of regular customers, and the condition of the premises, which, fortunately, belonged to me and was not rented. He walked around the shop, taking notes and photos, looking at the display cases, shelves, and backroom. Mrs. Harcourt, I can say at this point that your business is of some interest, he said, returning to the table. The location is good, you have regular customers, and you own the premises. But we have to be realistic. The market for handicrafts is not doing well right now. Large chains and online stores are taking customers away from small independent shops. I nodded. I knew that myself. Revenue had been falling in recent years despite all my efforts. What price can I expect to get? I asked bluntly. He named a figure. It was less than I had hoped for, but still, enough to buy a small house near Dorothy in Portland and live comfortably for a few years. And then, maybe I could find a part-time job teaching knitting or embroidery. I'll prepare a detailed appraisal report by the end of the week, Mr. Grierson said, gathering his papers. Then, if you decide to sell, we can start looking for a buyer. But I must warn you, it may take some time. Specialized businesses like this aren't in high demand. I understand, I replied, and I haven't made a final decision yet. He left me a folder with information about selling small businesses, his business card with his personal phone number, and left, promising to stay in touch. I was left alone in the empty store. The rain outside intensified, turning into a downpour. The few passers-by hurried to take shelter, no one caring about a yarn shop in such weather. I glanced around my little kingdom. Every corner, every shelf held memories. This is where Harold installed new shelves a week before Priscilla was born, rushing to finish before the baby arrived. And here, by the window, stood the cradle where our daughter slept while I served customers. In this corner, we held our first master classes. 6 women of different ages, sitting in a circle and diligently crocheting their first stitches under my guidance. So many years, so many memories. And yet, looking at the empty shelves which I couldn't fill with new goods due to lack of funds, at the outdated cash register system that was long overdue for replacement, at the cracked paint on the walls, I realized it was time. It was time to let go of the past and think about the future, my future. The decision that had been maturing in me for many months suddenly took shape with surprising clarity. I will sell the store. I will sell it and go to Dorothy, start a new life. A life without obligations, debts, and disappointments. I want to wake up and decide for myself what to do today. I want to travel, read books I've been putting off for years, maybe get a dog. I want to live for myself, at least for the years I have left. As if in response to my thoughts, the phone rang. I jumped. The shop's landline rarely rang. Most calls came to my cell phone. Yarn and fantasy, I answered automatically. Mom? Priscilla's voice sounded tense. Are you serious about selling the store? I was taken aback. How did you know? Margaret King called. She was passing by and saw a real estate agent leaving your shop. She said he had a folder with the real estate agency's logo and a badge. Margaret King was Marjorie Bradford's friend and Worcester's chief gossip. It was amazing how quickly news spread in a small town. Yes, I consulted with a real estate agent, I replied calmly. I want to find out how much the store might be worth if I decide to sell it. Mom, you can't just sell it. Priscilla's voice was indignant. It's a family business. It belonged to your grandmother. Priscilla, I tried to speak evenly. Grandma left it to me. and I've been running it for 37 years. I think I have the right to decide its fate. But what will you do? How will you live? She changed the subject. You're 65. Who will hire you? I have savings, I replied, and the money from selling the shop. That's enough to buy a small house near Dorothy and live modestly but without want. This plan of yours to move, are you serious? Leave everything and move to the other side of the country? What's keeping me here, Priscilla? I asked bluntly. We see each other once a month, and that's out of obligation. You call once a week to ask how I am, and then you hang up because you have a million things to do. Jason and Amanda don't even know what I do. Only Lucy. Exactly, Lucy, she interrupted. She was in tears all evening after you announced it at dinner. How can you do this to a child? I sighed. Using Lucy as an argument was low, even for Priscilla. I'll keep in touch with her, I said firmly. Phone calls, video calls. She can come visit during the holidays, and maybe the whole family can visit me in Portland sometime. It's not the end of the world, Priscilla. Mom, you don't understand. Her voice became pleading. This is all so sudden. Let's at least discuss it calmly together with Richard. Maybe there are other options. For example, transferring the store to a management company. We already talked about that at lunch. I began to lose my patience. A manager would cost more than the store's profits. It's not profitable. Then maybe, she paused for a second, maybe I could buy the shop as an investment. You'd get the money and the shop would stay in the family. This was unexpected. In all the years I'd known her, Priscilla had never shown any interest in the shop. She even despised it. And now she was suggesting this? Why would you want a yarn shop, Priscilla? I asked bluntly. You don't know anything about needlework. You don't know any suppliers. You don't know anything about the products. And you've always considered this business unrespectable. But it's part of our family history, she exclaimed. I don't want it to go to strangers. I couldn't believe my ears. My daughter, who had distanced herself from this little shop in every way possible for the last 20 years, had suddenly developed such a love for it. You know, Priscilla, I said after a pause, I need to think about it. I haven't made a final decision about selling yet. When I do, you'll be the first to know. Mom, please don't do anything without consulting me, she said, her voice sounding genuinely concerned. Promise? I promise I'll let you know what I decide, I replied evasively. Now I have to go. I have a buyer. It was a lie. The store was empty, but I didn't want to continue the conversation. We said goodbye, and I hung up, feeling a strange mixture of emotions. Why was Priscilla suddenly so concerned about the fate of the store? What was behind her offer to buy it? And why, now that I had finally decided to make a change, was everyone around me trying to talk me out of it? I walked over to the window and looked out at the rain. Drops ran down the glass, blurring the outlines of the street. Just like my life, everything that seemed clear and understandable suddenly becomes blurred and uncertain. And yet, despite Priscilla's sudden interest, my decision was made. I would sell the store, not necessarily to her, but to whoever offered the best price and was genuinely interested in continuing the business. I would sell it and start a new chapter in my life. A chapter in which I would be the main character, not a minor character in someone else's story. The doorbell rang and a woman soaked to the skin entered with 2 children. Can we wait here until the rain stops? She asked with a guilty smile. I nodded, pulling a box of leftover yarn from under the counter. Maybe the kids would like to learn how to make pom-poms? The children's faces lit up. Another ordinary day at the yarn and fantasy store, perhaps one of the last. The 3rd call of the morning. I look at the screen of my phone. It's Priscilla again. I sigh and press decline. A minute later, my phone beeps with a message. Mom, pick up the phone. It's important. A week has passed since Mr. Grierson came to evaluate the store. A week during which my daughter has gone crazy. She calls several times a day, sometimes to the store's landline, sometimes to my cell phone, each time with new arguments why I shouldn't sell the business. At first, I tried to explain, argue, and counter her points. Then I just listened. Now, more and more often, I just don't answer the phone. Sometimes I think my daughter is obsessed. But with what? Does she really care so much about a store she's despised her whole life? I'm sorting out a new shipment of embroidery kits, a collection of spring landscapes that I ordered a month ago. The shipment was late, but it's still quite nice. Although, who am I kidding? Kits like these haven't been in demand for a long time. Handicrafts are going out of style. The new generation prefers to buy ready-made items. The shop phone rings. It's not Priscilla. She would have called my cell right away. Maybe a customer? Yarn and fantasy, I answer. Mrs. Harcourt? It's a man's voice, vaguely familiar. This is Richard Bradford, Priscilla's husband. I'm surprised. Richard has never called me at the shop before. Hello, Richard, I say, trying to sound calm. How can I help you? Priscilla is very upset, he begins without preamble. She's been trying to reach you for several days. I spoke with her yesterday, I reply, and the day before yesterday, and every day this week. Yes, but you're not listening to her arguments, Richard says with a patronizing tone I've always disliked. Evelyn, selling a family business is a serious decision. You need to think it through carefully. I've been thinking about it for over a year, Richard, I say firmly, and I've made my decision. But why now? He changes tactics. If it's money, we can help. We have good investments, a stable income. It's not about money, Richard, I interrupt. The thing is, I'm tired. I'm 65 years old, and I want to live for myself. We understand, his voice softens. But why sell? You could hire a manager to run the business and you could just collect the profits. The same argument Priscilla used. I've explained dozens of times that the store is barely making ends meet. Where would we get the money to pay a manager? Richard, I appreciate your concern, but I've made my decision, I say firmly. And I would like you and Priscilla to respect it. Then at least let us make you an offer. He gets down to business. Priscilla and I are willing to buy the shop. Name your price. Why do you want a yarn shop, Richard? I ask bluntly. Neither you nor Priscilla have ever been interested in needlework. Pause. It's an investment, he finally replies. We could modernize the business, make it more contemporary, attract a younger audience, or resell the space for something more profitable. I finally understand what's going on. After all, the shop is in a good location, and I own the building. I don't rent it. Evelyn, don't be like that. Richard sounds almost hurt. We're thinking of your best interests and of preserving the family legacy. Thanks for your concern, I reply dryly. But I'm already working with a real estate agent and considering other offers. We say goodbye awkwardly. I put down the phone and look out the shop window. Now everything becomes clear. It's not about sentimental attachment to the family business. It's about real estate, which only increases in value over time. I work mechanically all day, serving the few customers who come in, stocking shelves, doing inventory. My thoughts revolve around my conversation with Richard. I feel bitter and disappointed. Does my own daughter really see me as nothing more than a source of potential profit? In the evening after closing the shop, I come home and find an envelope in the mailbox. Inside is a child's drawing, the yarn and fantasy shop, and next to it, me and a little girl with red hair, Lucy. Underneath the drawing, in uneven childish handwriting, is written, Grandma, I love you. Please don't go away. Tears well up in my eyes. I sit down on the porch, holding the drawing in my hands. How did Lucy manage to send it? She must have asked one of the adults, a neighbor or the babysitter. My phone rings. It's Priscilla again. The fourth call today. Yes, Priscilla, I answer wearily. Did you talk to Richard? She gets straight to the point. What do you think about our offer? I think you could be more honest with me, I say bluntly. If you're interested in the space for resale, just say so. No need for all this fairy tale about family heritage. Mom! Her voice sounds indignant. How can you think that? Of course the store is dear to us as a memory of Grandma and Dad. Really? I can't hold back the irony. Then why haven't you asked once in the last 10 years how business is going? You didn't offer to help when I told you sales were down? You didn't bring the kids to learn about the business that was so important to their grandfather? Mom, I have my own life, my own concerns, she begins to justify herself. You know how busy I am with the kids, with charity work. I know, I interrupt. So busy that you can only spare 5 minutes for your own mother's birthday. But as soon as it comes to selling the store, you suddenly have time to call several times a day. You're being unfair, her voice trembles. I've always taken care of you. In your own way, maybe, I agree. But right now, Priscilla, I'm asking you to respect my decision. I'm selling the shop, and not necessarily to you and Richard. But why? She almost shouts. Who else would want it but us? It's a niche business with a narrow audience. No one will offer you a good price. Will you, I ask? How much are you willing to pay? Pause. I can almost see her consulting with Richard in her mind, figuring out the minimum amount I would accept. We need to discuss everything. Look at the documents, evaluate the assets. She evades a direct answer. Maybe you could come over on the weekend and we can talk about it calmly? I've already had a preliminary appraisal, I say. The real estate agent thinks the store could sell for $150,000. That includes the premises, inventory, and customer base. In fact, Mr. Grierson valued the store at $120,000, but I decided to test my daughter's reaction. $150,000? Priscilla sounds almost indignant. That's robbery. The store isn't worth that much. So you're not interested? I smile, although she can't see my smile. She stammers. We need to think about it. It's a lot of money, Mom. Think about it, I agree. In the meantime, I'll look at other offers. We say goodbye, and I feel a strange sense of satisfaction. Now I know for sure what motivated Priscilla and Richard. It wasn't concern for me or sentimental attachment to the family business, but simple calculation. They hoped to buy the store for a song and then resell the premises at a good profit. The next few days turn into a marathon of phone calls. Priscilla attacks me on all fronts. On Thursday morning, she calls me in tears. Mom, Lucy won't stop crying. She's so attached to you, to your store. How can you do this to her? After lunch, she threatens me. If you sell the shop to strangers, I'll never forgive you. It's our family legacy. You have no right to do this. In the evening, she accuses me. You've always been selfish. You've always thought only of yourself. Even when Dad was sick, you cared more about your shop than about him. This last accusation hurts the most. I spent every minute of Harold's illness by his side, holding his hand as he died. The shop was just a means of earning money for his treatment, which, alas, did not help. On Friday, Priscilla changes tactics. She comes to the store in person with a bouquet of flowers and a box of cookies. Mom, I'm sorry about yesterday. She hugs me with theatrical tenderness. I was upset. I said too much. You know how much I love you. I accept her apology, but remain on guard. And rightly so, 5 minutes into the conversation, she returns to the subject of selling the store. Richard and I have discussed everything, she says, sipping the tea I made. We are willing to offer you $100,000 for the store. It's a very generous offer, considering the state of the market. Mr. Grissom valued the shop at $120,000, I reply calmly. And there's already a potential buyer who's willing to pay the full price. It's a lie. There's no buyer yet, but I'm curious to see Priscilla's reaction. Who? She almost jumps out of her chair. Who is this buyer? I can't disclose that information. I evade the question. Mom, this is a business. She leans over the counter toward me. 120,000? Fine. We'll pay 120, but on one condition. You don't leave Worcester. Why does my leaving bother you so much? I ask bluntly. We only see each other once a month, if that. But you're the grandmother of my children, she exclaims, throwing her hands up in the air. Especially Lucy. She's so attached to you. We need you here in Worcester. I look at my daughter, trying to figure out what's sincere and what's manipulation. Priscilla has always been a good actress. As a child, she could burst into tears on cue to get what she wanted. I'll think about your offer, I finally say. But the decision to leave has already been made. I've put my life on hold for too long, Priscilla. She leaves clearly dissatisfied, but tries to hide it behind a smile and promises to call soon. That evening, the phone rings. I think it's Priscilla again, but an unfamiliar number appears on the screen. Hello? I answer cautiously. Grandma? A quiet child's voice asks. It's me, Lucy. Lucy! I'm surprised and delighted. Sweetie, where are you calling from? It's my friend Emma's phone, she whispers. Mom won't let me call you. She says you're very busy, but I really wanted to talk. You can always call me, I say, feeling a lump in my throat. I'm never too busy for you. Grandma, is it true that you're selling your shop and moving far, far away? Her voice sounds anxious. I'm thinking about it, sweetie, I say honestly. But if I do move, we'll still keep in touch. On the phone, on video chat, and you can come visit me on vacation. Really? Her voice brightens a little. Mom says that if you move, we'll never see each other again. So that's how it is. Priscilla's using the child to pressure me. Your mother is wrong, I say firmly. I will always be your grandmother no matter where I live, and I will always love you. I love you too, Lucy whispers. Grandma, can I come to your shop? I want to learn how to knit like you promised. Of course, sweetie, I reply. Come by any day after school. Tomorrow is Saturday, she says. Can I come tomorrow? Mom is at a charity dinner and Dad is at work. Emma and her mom can take me to your shop and pick me up afterwards. Of course, I agree, even though I know Priscilla will be furious when she finds out. I'll be waiting for you. We say goodbye, and I sit for a long time staring into space. Something about this situation is deeply wrong. Why would an 8-year-old child have to call her grandmother in secret? Why does Priscilla forbid Lucy from talking to me? The next morning, I wake up with mixed feelings. Joy at the prospect of seeing my granddaughter, and anxiety that Priscilla might find out and cause a scene. But I decide that I have a right to see my own granddaughter, even if her mother is against it. Lucy shows up at the store around 11, her red hair braided into 2 pigtails, freckles scattered across her nose, her eyes shining. Grandma! She throws her arms around my neck. I missed you so much. The young woman who brought her, Emma's mother presumably, smiles. Hello, Mrs. Harcourt. I'm Sarah, Emma's mother. My daughter and I are going shopping and we'll be back for Lucy in a couple of hours, okay? Of course, I nod. Thank you for bringing her. When we are left alone, Lucy looks around in awe. Your place is so beautiful, so many different colors. Can I touch them? Of course, sweetie, I smile. This is a store. You can touch everything here. The next 2 hours fly by. I show Lucy different types of yarn, explain the difference between knitting needles and crochet hooks, and teach her how to hold the needles and cast on the first stitches. She picks it up quickly. She clearly has a talent for needlework. You're just like me when I was little, I say, watching her concentrate on knitting her first row of stitches. I started knitting when I was your age. My grandmother taught me. Really? Lucy looks up. Does my mom know how to knit? She used to, I reply. I taught her when she was a little older than you, but then she lost interest. My mom says knitting is for old ladies, Lucy says, lowering her eyes. She makes fun of girls who do needlework. Typical Priscilla. She always wanted to distance herself from anything that reminded her of her humble origins. Knitting is for anyone who likes to make beautiful things with their hands, I say. And it's coming back into fashion, by the way. Lots of young designers are using knitted elements in their collections. Lucy nods, concentrating on her knitting. It starts to rain outside, but it's warm and cozy in the shop. I look at my granddaughter and think that maybe I should stay in Worcester for these rare but precious moments. My phone rings. It's Priscilla for the 12th time in 3 days. Mom! Her voice sounds unusually agitated. Have you seen Lucy? She's missing. She was supposed to be at her friend's house, but when I called her mom, they said they weren't home. I look at Lucy, who looks up when she hears her mother's name. Lucy is here with me, I say calmly. She's perfectly safe, learning to knit. What? Priscilla starts shouting. How did she get there? I didn't give her permission to go to your house. She came with her friend Emma's mom, I explain. They'll be back to pick her up in an hour. Send her home immediately, Priscilla demands. I forbade her to leave the house. Priscilla, calm down, I say firmly. Lucy is 8 years old. She has a right to see her grandmother, and she's having a wonderful time. You don't understand. Priscilla is almost in tears. I was worried sick, and she's with you. Maybe if you hadn't forbidden her to see me, she wouldn't have had to resort to such measures, I remark. I'm coming to get her. Priscilla ignores my words. I'll be there in 20 minutes. She hangs up. I look at Lucy, who is clearly upset. Is Mom angry? She was just worried. I try to soften the blow. You really should have told her where you were going. But she wouldn't have let me, Lucy says, lowering her head. She says you're a bad influence on me, that you're old-fashioned and teach me useless things. It hurts to hear that. Does Priscilla really despise me so much that she turns her own daughter against me? Your mother just wants the best for you, I say, hiding my bitterness. In her own way. But you know what? That's what grandmothers are for. To teach useless things that actually make life more beautiful and interesting. Lucy smiles and goes back to her knitting. We manage to finish the first sample, a small, uneven square, before Priscilla bursts into the store. Her face is contorted with anger, her hair is tousled. She's obviously been running. Lucy! She grabs her daughter by the arm. Home now! How could you scare me like that? Mom, look what I knitted! Lucy holds out her square, oblivious to her mother's fury. Grandma taught me how to knit! Wonderful. Priscilla barely glances at her daughter's work. Get ready, we have to go. But Emma's mom was supposed to pick me up. I already called her, Priscilla interrupts. Wait for me in the car. I need to talk to your grandmother. Lucy hugs me goodbye. Thank you, Grandma. Can I come back to learn from you? Of course, sweetie, I reply, even though I know Priscilla won't allow it. You're always welcome here. When Lucy leaves, Priscilla turns to me. How could you? You know I don't allow her to come here. Why not? I ask bluntly. What's wrong with a granddaughter spending time with her grandmother? You're turning her against me, Priscilla blurts out. You're teaching her nonsense that distracts her from her studies. Knitting develops fine motor skills, coordination, and patience, I object, and Lucy wanted to learn herself. I didn't force her. It doesn't matter, Priscilla waves her hand. I don't want her spending time here. She has important things to do. Music, ballet, Spanish. What about just being a child? I ask quietly. Having time to just enjoy life? Don't tell me how to raise my children. Priscilla raises her voice. You've made enough mistakes with your own daughter. It's a low blow. I remain silent, not knowing how to respond. And another thing, she continues, calming down a little. I want you to know that Richard and I are willing to pay $130,000 for the store. That's more than your real estate agent offered. But there's a condition. You have to stay in Worcester. So that's it, bargaining again. Why is this so important to you? I ask. Because we're family, she exclaims, as if that explains everything. And family should be together. I look at my daughter for a long time. We're only family in name, Priscilla. In reality, we've been living separate lives for a long time. And your sudden desire to be together only appeared when I decided to sell the store. That's not true, she almost shouts. I've always cared about you. In your own way, yes, I agree. But real care means respecting another person's wishes and decisions, and you're trying to control my life, just like you control Lucy's. Priscilla looks at me indignantly. How dare you? I do everything for my family. All you think about is yourself. No, Priscilla, I shake my head. I've spent 37 years thinking about others, about you, about Harold, about the customers. Now it's time to think about myself. She leaves, slamming the door so hard that the bell rings. I stand there for a long time, watching her go. My heart aches, but my resolve only grows stronger. Now I know for sure that I have to leave. The next week is pure torture. Priscilla's calls don't stop. She changes tactics, as if trying every possible way to influence me. The 14th call is tearful pleas. Mom, please don't do this. We need you here. What will I tell the children? The 15th is financial promises. We're raising our offer to $140,000. That's very generous considering the state of the market. The 16th is threats. If you sell the store to someone else, I'll never forgive you. You'll never see your grandchildren again. 17th, attempt to exert pressure through third parties. Marjorie Bradford, Priscilla's mother-in-law, arrives at the store with a box of expensive chocolates and a fake smile. Evelyn, dear, I just wanted to talk. Priscilla is so upset. Isn't there a way to resolve this situation peacefully? I politely but firmly show her out, refusing to discuss my plans with outsiders. The 18th call, Richard takes the initiative again. Evelyn, be reasonable. $140,000 is more than you'll get from any other buyer, and you can stay in Worcester close to your family. Mr. Grissom has found a buyer who is offering $135,000, I reply, and he's not making any conditions about where I live. Another lie. There is no buyer yet, but I want to test his reaction. $150,000, Richard blurts out after a pause, but that's our last offer. 19, 20, 21 rings. I stop answering and turn on the answering machine. Priscilla's voice sounds alternately pleading and threatening. Mom, pick up the phone. I know you're there. We need to talk. If you sell the store to strangers, I'll never forgive you. Mom, please think about Lucy. She'll miss you so much. The 22nd call is a new tactic. Priscilla comes to the shop with Lucy, who looks tearful. Look, Mom, Priscilla points to her daughter. See what you're doing to her? She hasn't stopped crying since she found out you're leaving. I kneel down in front of my granddaughter. Lucy, sweetheart, don't cry. We'll still see each other, I promise. Really? She sniffs. You won't forget me? Never, I hug her. You'll always be my favorite granddaughter. Priscilla watches us with a triumphant gleam in her eyes. She's sure she's found my weakness, and she's right. Lucy is my weak spot. But I can't give up my plans, even for her. Sometimes you have to think about yourself. 23, 24, 25 calls. I stop counting. Priscilla is obsessed. She calls early in the morning and late at night, sends messages and emails. Her persistence is starting to resemble mania. On Saturday, she shows up at my doorstep with teary eyes. Mom, please, let's just talk. No yelling, no accusations like before. I let her in and make tea. We sit in the kitchen and talk almost normally for the first time in a long time. Why is it so important to you that I stay in Worcester? I ask bluntly. And why do you and Richard want to buy the shop so badly? Priscilla sighs. It's hard to explain. You see, we always thought that the shop would pass on to us after you're gone. It's a family business, a tradition. And what would you do with it? I look closely at my daughter. She lowers her eyes. Richard and I were thinking, maybe sell the building. It's in a good location downtown. We could get a lot more for it than the store is worth. Finally, the truth. And that's why you're so insistent on buying it? I ask. Afraid of missing out on a profit? Not only that, Priscilla shakes her head. I really don't want you to leave. Lucy is very attached to you, and I'll miss you. The last words sound almost sincere, almost. Priscilla, I say gently, if you really valued our relationship, you wouldn't have had to make 28 phone calls to show it. You would have shown you cared all these years, not just when your financial plans were threatened. She jumps up. That's not fair. I've always cared about you. In your own way, maybe, I agree. But real care looks different. It's respect, attention, time spent together. Not a plastic flower on your birthday and a 5-minute visit once a month. The mention of the plastic flower makes her blush. I thought you'd like something practical, she mumbles. Something that doesn't need looking after. Like me, right? I smile sadly. Something you can put down and forget about. We are silent for a long time. Finally, Priscilla stands up. I can see you've made up your mind. Well, it's your life. But the offer to buy the shop still stands. $150,000, no strings attached as to where you live. I'll think about it, I reply, walking her to the door. When she leaves, I stand at the window for a long time, looking out at the street. The conversation left me with a strange feeling, a mixture of sadness, disappointment, and relief. Sadness that our relationship would never be what I wanted it to be. Disappointment that even now Priscilla couldn't be completely honest. And relief that I had finally said what I had wanted to say for so long. Mr. Grierson called on Monday with news. Mrs. Harcourt, I have a buyer for you. A young couple, Alice and Michael Page. They want to keep the craft store but modernize it a bit. Add online sales, workshops for children, that sort of thing. They're offering $125,000. I ask him to arrange a meeting. Alice and Michael turn out to be a nice couple in their 30s. She is a former elementary school teacher who is passionate about quilting. He is a web designer who is ready to take on the online part of the business. We've been dreaming of starting our own business for a long time, says Alice, looking around the shop with love and respect. And when we saw the ad for Yarn and Fantasy, we knew it was meant to be. I grew up in Worcester and used to come here with my mom. You probably don't remember. I don't remember, but I'm glad the shop left such fond memories for this woman. They talk about their plans to keep the traditional range but add new lines, create a website, and hold workshops for children and adults. Everything that Harold and I once dreamed of but didn't have time to achieve. We're willing to pay $125,000, Michael says. That's all our savings plus a small loan. We understand that's less than you wanted. It's a fair price, I reply. And I like your vision for the future of the store. I think we can work something out. We discuss the details of the deal and the terms of the transfer of the business. I promise to help them get started, introduce them to suppliers, tell them about regular customers and their preferences. Thank you. Alice shakes my hand goodbye. We'll keep the soul of this place alive, I promise. I believe her, and I feel a strange sense of relief, as if I have found worthy heirs to my life's work. In the evening, Priscilla calls. It's the 28th call in 2 weeks. Mom, I heard you found buyers. Her voice sounds subdued. Is it true? Yes, I reply. They're a nice couple and they want to keep the shop and develop it. And how much are they offering? She asks bluntly without beating around the bush. 125,000, I say honestly. But we offered 150. Her voice sounds indignant. Why did you choose them over us? Because they love the shop and want to keep its essence, I reply. You and Richard just wanted to resell the premises. It's business, Mom, Priscilla sighs. Nothing personal, just an investment. Exactly, I agree. For you, it's just business. But for me, it's my life's work, a part of me and Harold. I can't give it to people who don't appreciate its soul. We are silent. Then Priscilla asks quietly, So you're leaving after all? Yes, I reply. As soon as the deal is finalized, Dorothy is already looking for a house for me near her place. What about Lucy? I make one last attempt to press her. She'll miss you. I'll call her every day, I say, and she can come visit me during the holidays. I've already discussed it with Dorothy. She has a big house, there's plenty of room. I won't let her go across the country alone, Priscilla says stubbornly. Then come with the whole family, I suggest. Portland is a beautiful city, you'll love it. She snorts. We don't have time for trips like that. Richard has work, the kids have school and activities. So you don't have time to visit your grandmother, but you want her to stay in Worcester for the sake of rare visits with you? I can't help sounding ironic. Priscilla is silent. Then she says quietly, I don't understand you, Mom. I really don't. I know, dear, I reply. And that's probably our main problem. We've never really understood each other. We say goodbye almost peacefully. I hang up and feel a strange sense of relief, as if a long, exhausting battle has ended. 28 phone calls, dozens of manipulations, threats, persuasion, and all for nothing. I've made my decision and I won't back down. The next day, Lucy comes to the store, alone, unaccompanied. When I see her, I'm startled. Lucy, how did you get here? Does your mom know? No, she shakes her head. I ran away from school. I wanted to see you before you left. I hug her, not knowing whether to cry or laugh. Sweetie, you can't do that. Your mom will worry. I wrote a note to my teacher saying I had a stomachache and my grandmother picked me up, Lucy explains with childlike innocence. They'll think it was Marjorie. What a resourceful child. I call the school, explain the situation, and promise to bring Lucy after lunch. Then I call Priscilla, but she doesn't answer. She's probably at some charity event. Grandma, teach me something else, Lucy asks. I want to remember so I can keep going when you're gone. We spend 2 hours mastering more complicated stitches. Lucy picks everything up quickly, her little fingers deftly maneuvering the needles. I look at her and think how sad it is that there will be thousands of miles between us. But maybe distance isn't what matters? Maybe what matters is that we make time for each other, even if it means skipping class or traveling thousands of miles? Grandma, I'm going to miss you, Lucy says as I drive her back to school. But I understand why you're leaving. You want to be happy, right? Yes, sweetheart. I'm surprised by her insight. I want to live the rest of my life the way I want to. Selfish, isn't it? No, she shakes her head. Miss Parker says that everyone has a right to happiness, even grandmas. I hug her, feeling tears welling up in my eyes. You're a very wise girl, Lucy. Promise me you won't lose that wisdom when you grow up. I promise, she says, raising her pinky finger for our traditional pledge handshake. I leave her at school, promising to call in the evening. On the way home, I think about how strange life is. My own daughter, whom I raised with love and care, has become almost a stranger to me. And my granddaughter, with whom I have spent so little time, understands me better than anyone else. Perhaps that is the main lesson here. True closeness does not depend on the amount of time spent together or blood ties. It comes from mutual respect, understanding, and acceptance. And I am grateful to fate that, despite all the difficulties with Priscilla, I have Lucy in my life, a little ray of light that will warm me even 3,000 miles away.